Welcome, welcome. Good evening. It's nice to practice together. Thank you for coming here. So in a few weeks I will be on a plane. Me and many Americans probably will be on a plane. And I've just been noticing how when there's air travel involved, I have this restlessness like this. Okay, I gotta remember to pack this and don't pack that and gotta check on this and that. And I don't know, there's this certain like agitation that starts sometime before. How's the traffic gonna be? Make sure I got a ride to the airport. Maybe I should bring that other suitcase. I don't need to bring so much stuff. It's just crazy how there's this, sometimes this little thinking shows up. And maybe some of you are familiar with this, whether it's having to get on an airplane or whether it's doing something, maybe something you don't really want to do. Reply to that email or something like this. So there's this flavor of restlessness, this or not being settled, being a little bit of agitated. And tonight I'd like to talk about the opposite of restlessness, tranquility. I'd like to talk a little bit about tranquility. And I'm just now remembering that I taught a course on the 7 factors of awakening, and tranquility is one of these factors. I'll talk about that in just a moment. But there was just the way that the schedule was, that I didn't have time to go through all the factors of awakening with the same depth. There had to be one factor I had to spend less time on. And I chose tranquility. I'll spend less time on tranquility because nobody wants to hear about that. We're like in Silicon Valley here. We're like, okay, no, I got to go. I got to do things. Other things need to happen, And so there's people don't often want to hear actually being quiet. Even though we secretly are really wishing for this, there's this way in which we don't really want to hear about it. Or we only want to hear about it, okay, that sounds like a good idea, as soon as I finish this other thing, as soon as, something else is fine. So it's this whole quality of tranquility is such an interesting one. So that's what I'd like to talk about a little bit tonight. So what is tranquility? It's not just zoning out. It's not just sitting still, kind of checked out in some kind of way, but instead it's this clear, alive, I might say, stillness in the heart and mind that has a real sense of presence. So it's not a numbness, instead it's a brightness that is not agitated. So it has this quality of being peaceful and calm and maybe some serenity or contentment, which is what many of us say that we are looking for and what we wish for. All of us wish for some way in which we can just kind of exhale I'm here, finally. And often we start a meditation practice thinking that we'll be able to find it during meditation. And sometimes we do. We might touch into this. But wouldn't it be great if we could have this not just in meditation, but in our daily life, in all aspects of our life? So tranquility has this, maybe we could say that the mind has stopped pacing in a small room, kind of that being agitated, going back and forth. And instead the mind is sitting on the porch, this big porch, watching the rain. It's lovely, right, to have the rain these past few days, and there's something kind of nice to just, whether you're on the porch or looking out the window or standing outside, just, I don't know, especially after, this whole big dry season, the beginning of the wet season, there's something beautiful about it. So rather than this pacing inside, just going out, it's like, wow, isn't this beautiful? And just appreciating what's there. And of course, we have this iconic image of the Buddha sitting. He doesn't look agitated. It's often, this sense of tranquility. His eyes, I think they're half open in this statue here. Has this stableness and this steadiness. Having this tranquility, this being tranquil, is one of the hallmarks of a Buddhist practice. Or maybe we have this just in our everyday life, this sense of after finishing a big project, there can be a feeling like, that's done. For me, this happens when I'm actually on the plane, and actually I've buckled my seatbelt. Then there's a sense of okay. And in a way that agitation is not even so noticeable. Well, let's say this. It's noticeable in the contrast of after buckling my seatbelt on the plane. Then I realize, there's been this subtle agitation there at the airport, getting there and thinking about the flight and all these types of things. So again, tranquility, it's not like this sleepiness, it's not this dullness, but instead it has this brightness. And as I mentioned earlier, tranquility is one of the 7 factors of awakening. It's one of the elements of practice of life that really supports awakening. And we could say that it's the soil, it's the environment in which wisdom and freedom grow out of. The 7 factors of awakening, it's not necessary that you have memorized this list, is mindfulness, investigation, energy, tranquility, concentration, and wisdom. So in this list of 7, there's a certain amount of progression where mindfulness and investigation help us to see what's actually happening. And there's some energy that arises with this. There's a way in which the energy of maybe some decisiveness, like, now that I see clearly there, I have a sense of where to go or what to do. And this energy can help support a sense of joy, a sense of uplift in the heart and mind. And there's this maybe a certain lightness or happiness of the mind. But joy can also tip into this fizziness, this bubbliness that has a little quality of agitation in it, especially when compared to maybe some happiness or contentment. Not to knock joy, right? Who wants to knock joy? But I just want to say it has this maybe this bubbly quality of it. And then in this progression, in this list of the 7 factors of awakening, after joy is tranquility. Tranquility is what arises when the heart and mind are no longer looking for happiness, no longer searching for the next best thing. Instead is this certain amount of, I don't have to go find it. I've just been experiencing it. So we could say that maybe tranquility is when the fizziness, the bubbliness of joy has settled down into this quiet, calm ease. And it's this quiet, calm ease that creates the conditions in which there can be some deeper understanding, some deeper seeing. And the agitation has diminished. So, Gil Fronsdal, many of you are familiar with him, the founder of this center, he has said that if you feel like you need some wisdom in your life, you feel like you need some insight, like, a way forward or a new understanding, if you feel like you need some wisdom, work with tranquility. Because tranquility will help create the conditions in which the wisdom can arise. So often the looking, I got to figure this out, maybe I should do this, maybe I shouldn't do that, I'll do these pros and cons list, I'll use Post-it notes and make a little spreadsheet or whatever it might be. That can really help, but there's some agitation that's underneath that. And so if we can bring some tranquility to the ways in which we're trying to solve problems or find something, makes it more likely that wisdom can arise. So tranquility is one of the factors of awakening, as I was saying. And we could say there's a continuity between tranquility and freedom, liberation, awakening. It helps create the conditions for wisdom, and it also has this connection with freedom. And one of this is that with tranquility, there is this sense of, this is enough. The sense of, the stillness, and quite like, this is enough. Right? Tranquility is the opposite of, trying to go and find and make and do. And so there's this natural willingness to just remain here. Right? When we're tranquil, there's a sense of, yeah. There's not this pressing need to go do something different. Maybe some of our compulsions have settled down. Some of our patterns of agitation, movement have settled down. So there's this way that we don't want to maybe disturb the stillness. There's no urge to disturb the stillness when there's tranquility. And liberation, freedom, is the same ease, the same lack of needing to move away from what's here right now. It's maybe this ease that's moved into a unbound way that's not dependent on conditions or dependent on anything really. So tranquility is a way in which the heart and the mind start to have a taste of, oh, okay, just being here and having some confidence that it's okay to just be here. It's restful to not always be looking for the next thing that's going to be stimulating or a lasting source of happiness or something like this. And so tranquility and liberation, not only do they have this sense of this is enough, but we could say that tranquility is maybe like an apprenticeship in just staying here, just staying here and now. It's a way in which we can practice and get glimpses of the freedom that's available when we're not following each impulse or not following each urge, but instead are able to just be with what's arising. And I know for me that I really started to feel a sense of tranquility. It took for me some meditation practice. I didn't realize how much agitation I had in my life. This sense of this sense of striving for more and more and more. And I didn't realize how deep that was in everything I did. I had this sense that somehow I had to optimize everything, or I had to be as efficient as possible, or I had to plan, okay, well, I'll do this, but it makes more sense I should do this thing first, or I should stop at the grocery store on the way back from going to my friend's house, but then my friend kind of lives near here. I don't know. There's this way in which I was always planning, trying to make things work just as efficient. In my professional life, that was great. I got rewarded for that. But then I discovered I just felt like I had to optimize and make my whole entire existence efficient in some kind of way. And how there's this agitation that I didn't realize. And so I went on meditation retreats where there's really nothing to be done on meditation retreats except meditate. We have our there's jobs that we do to support the center. But other than that, but I discovered, like, I would even find myself even doing this on retreats. Okay, so if I leave my jacket here, then if I leave the meditation hall from there, I can pick up my jacket. I don't know, it's crazy. Some of that is smart and wise to do, but not like rehearsing it over and over again. So this idea of tranquility, of it just, this is enough. And just to be here and just to be quiet with however the breath is, whatever the sound in the hall is like. So if we want to cultivate some tranquility, it's helpful to start with understanding restlessness. And there's a way in which we kind of just want to bounce off of restlessness, this agitation, this uncomfortableness, because it's uncomfortable. And so often we don't really understand restlessness. We don't understand or see it deeply because we're so busy bouncing off of it, because it has a certain amount of discomfort. It's really fascinating how this, how does, restlessness show up for you? Like, what is this experience? Because it can be really obvious, this feeling like, I just gotta get me out of here, whatever way I can get out of here. Or it can be really subtle, really subtle. Just, when the mind and the body are really quiet, just the way in which the mind will all of a sudden pop up. This is boring. And then it wants to create some problem that it can solve. Even though it was this perfectly content and happy to be settled, and the mind wants to create something just to do. But how does it show up for you? Restlessness might show up, as this impulse to fidget or to move, or maybe it's literally that we start doing things with our hands, or some people are you move their leg, they're or tapping a lot or something like this. Or maybe there's just this feeling of looking at the clock or looking at the door, or something like this feeling of just wanting to be elsewhere. Those are some of the obvious ways in which restlessness shows up. But there's these subtle ways too of, as I said, just making the experience be a problem, and this way of, okay, I gotta figure it out. Or maybe in the mind it's this scattered thinking, not quite able to organize our thoughts, and instead just having a jumble of thoughts. Sometimes this happens to me, and I find it really helpful to take a pen and a piece of paper, this good old-fashioned pen and paper, and write things down. And then it just, all of a sudden, things kind of coalesce if I can just get them down on paper. And then oh, whew, it feels like a relief. Sometimes I do that when I'm organizing my notes to give a talk. Sometimes I have a few ideas, but I feel a little bit agitated. I haven't quite settled down into the Dharma talk preparation. And I just, good old-fashioned pen and paper. So, but in some ways, we might, we have it in the body, we might experience it in the mind, but in some ways we might not even be so sensitive to restlessness because in some ways it feels like a constant companion. We're so used to maybe this low-grade anxiety, like things aren't quite right, or I need to do more, these types of things. So how can we practice with restlessness? So one, working with tranquility is to understand restlessness. And maybe I'll say that this is not something that is just like, oh, I think about it once and you feel like you understand it fully. This is really a practice to understand all the ways in which restlessness shows up. But then also, how can we practice with it? Because right as restlessness goes down, of course, tranquility goes up. So, first of all, I want to say that often, as I mentioned earlier, there's a reluctance to relax. And it sounds funny to say that, but there can be this way in which the mind has the idea, well, no, I have to solve this problem. And solving the problem takes the form of ruminating or worrying or just being busy doing things or something. It's fascinating how much, like in our modern society, how often we don't really settle down when the opportunities are there. When we're standing in line at the grocery store, how often we're like, oh, let me get stimulated again and do something. As if the grocery store isn't stimulating enough, all those products. So there can be a reluctance to relax, partly because we feel like we have this restlessness, but there's also can be a way in which we want to protect ourselves from, we might have this feeling like, okay, well, if I'm tranquil, then if I'm quiet, then that'll just make the restlessness that I have feel even more agitating. I don't want to feel quiet. It's easier just to have this low-grade, energized, buzzy feeling than to be quiet. We don't want to feel like there's like these swings going back and forth. So, what are the ways in which we can cultivate tranquility directly? We could say maybe there's 3 doorways. Probably won't be surprised by these. One doorway is the body. Can we intentionally relax the body? In whatever way feels available and appropriate for you. Whatever way feels helpful. Can be sometimes when I do guided meditations, I encourage people to soften the face, because sometimes we don't even know around the eyes or the jaw there might be some tightness. Thinking about putting the shoulders down. It can be easeful also to have an upright posture, because sometimes we think of it's relaxing to maybe be in a slumping posture. That's true, it can be, but there's a way also that the mind can also kind of get clouded or foggy when we're in a not an upright posture, or a posture has a maybe slumping quality to it. Yeah, I was just noticing remembering that there was many years ago when I would find myself kind of like, because I'm not so tall, so when I'm sitting on most couches, I have to lean way back. And I used to do this sometime, and I just noticed how there would be this quality of kind of just checking out, sitting. But I noticed if I put pillows behind it and just sit upright, then I'm just more present. I'm still relaxed, and I'm still relaxed, but there's some presentness. So This idea of a support for tranquility, one doorway is to relax the body, but not in such a way that it goes into sleepiness or dullness or something like this. Also, something we can do to support tranquility is to just place attention on the exhale. Of course, we're always inhaling and exhaling. In meditation practice, in this tradition, we don't control the breath. We just allow the body to breathe, however it's breathing. But it can be really helpful to just notice the exhale or pay particular attention to the exhale and maybe just extend it a tiny bit, not an exaggerated amount, just a tiny bit. This attention on the exhale often can be really supportive, as there's a way in which the tensions kind of go out with the out-breath. So that's the doorway of the body as a support for tranquility. One of the doorways, of course, is the mind. And of course, meditation supports tranquility. This activity of bringing our attention, whether we're doing mindfulness or we're doing concentration or we're doing loving kindness, just in a gentle way, bringing our attention back to the anchor. This can be a tremendous support for tranquility. But is there a way that when you're, during meditation, but also not during meditation, to maybe have a sense of contentment? Yeah, this is enough. This is enough. Especially in daily life, we don't recognize how often there's this sense of, I need more. We get this message in so many ways. How many emails do we get? Buy more, do more. It's quite something. Be more. Is there a way that we can say, this is enough. This is enough. This moment. Just say, this moment is enough. Oh, this is often underestimated how powerful this can be. What about having gratitude for what is already present, or whatever, having gratitude for anything? This often supports tranquility. This is part of the reason why a gratitude journal, a gratitude practice can be so powerful. It's because it helps kind of like quiet that feeling like there always needs to be more. And with that quieting, there can be this stilling and settling. So cultivating tranquility can be through the doorway of the body, through the doorway of the mind. And then the third must be the doorway of our environment. Can we spend time off of screens? I guess more and more we're starting to appreciate, how they affect us, affect the nervous system. I notice this. If I'm on screens before it's time to go to sleep, then the sleep just isn't as restful. And I guess there's data to support this too, like the architecture of the sleep, like what duration of time you're in different stages shifts if there's been a lot of screen time before. So there's this way it impacts us, even if we don't notice it at the time. But it does affect our nervous system in some kind of way. So our environment. But also, is there a way that we can practice monotasking instead of multitasking? These ways, right? It's a little bit agitating to be task switching all the time. Instead of this feeling like I have to hurry or to be the most efficient possible, like I was talking about, can we just do one thing? Even if that means that we're maybe just standing there for a few minutes while the water is boiling for tea. It doesn't take very long for water to boil. What would it be like to just stand and wait? Instead of like, oh, okay, while the water's boiling, I'm going to do this and that and the other, all this kind of stuff. I would say that, our brains, our minds, I'm imagining we're not, we haven't evolved to be so constantly stimulated. And what would it be like just to allow things to be a little bit more simple and quiet? You don't have to go live in a cave. You don't have to sell all your belongings. You don't have to get rid of your smartphone. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about those small moments. Waiting in line, the stoplight, to drive without music, or go for a walk without a podcast. Sometimes I would be astounded. I had this idea that I was going to go for a walk, and while I'm out for a walk, I wanted to listen, to something entertaining or interesting or something. And then the amount of time it would take me to find and line up just the right thing. Sometimes it's nice to listen to things, when walking, but sometimes it's nice just to be outside walking without listening to something. So our environment, of course, is also a doorway into which we can support tranquility. Because maybe we could ask, or we could discover for ourselves in a world that's constantly pulling us to do things and fix things and accomplish things, then what happens when we simply rest? What is that like? I kind of feel like we're losing this capacity these days. So maybe this week you could just choose this tiny little mini practice, or just discover if you ever find yourself at a stoplight, standing in line for something, going for a walk. What would it be like to experiment with not adding anything? Just keeping things simple and allowing some of the body and the mind to quiet down so some tranquility can arise. And there can be more and more of a feeling of just stay here, instead of this urge we often have to move and do the next thing. So what importance do you give to calmness, peace? What role does it have in your life? Is there a way in which you could maybe appreciate those moments when it does arise? And with the sense that it's really connected to more freedom, even though we often feel like we have to do more to have more freedom. What I'm pointing to here is maybe there's a way in which just not adding anything extra and allow tranquility to arise is a way towards freedom. What happens when we simply rest? Stop adding anything. Allow tranquility to be part of our experience. I'll stop there and open it up to see if there's some questions or comments. Thank you.
So I never thought much about tranquility. That simply didn't come up in my inquiry. but I think a lot about contentment or the lack of it. And I wonder, can you tell me, is there a difference? What is the difference?
Yeah. Yeah, this is a legitimate question. What's the difference between contentment and tranquility? This is how I understand it, and the early teachings don't say specifically. They show up in different lists. So tranquility is more of a bodily experience, and contentment is more of a mental experience. But I'm broadening the definition of tranquility to be both body and mind, and I often am doing that with contentment too. So in the way that I'm often teaching, there isn't such a big difference between them. Anybody else have a comment or a question?
Well, your voice is so calming that I tend to fall asleep, but I'm not asleep. I hear the words, but I know I'm not asleep. Or maybe my chin goes down, I don't know. But it feels I feel very tranquil. But then when I kind of wake up from what state of mind I'm in, then I'm going, oh, reality is back. I don't know what to make of it.
Can you tell me a little bit, so what's the experience like? Is there a way in which it's kind of like closing in, or is it out and bright, or is there energy or not a lot of energy, or?
In the tranquility, I'm kind of half asleep. It's a little hard to explain. I can't be the only one that's experienced this. But it's, I don't know. But then reality comes back. Oh, I'm supposed to be paying attention, I'm not good at explaining it, but it's kind of negative in a way when I'm realizing, okay, I wasn't really paying attention to what you were saying, but it felt wonderful because I felt so relaxed. It's your voice,
So I don't know exactly, but it could be something that we call kind of like sinking mind, where there's a way in which it's almost like the mind is wrapped in cotton, and there's a coziness to it, and there's kind of like a quietness and not a lot of energy. It's this kind of like a little cocoon, and cocoon's not a good word.
Oh, that's good.
Is it? And in contrast is like when you say, oh, there's reality. Reality is a little bit more bright and energetic. Would you say that that's kind of the way that it?
Well, sometimes it's more. I liked it the way it was. I liked that tranquility. I liked your voice, and it's kind of like I'm asleep, but I'm not asleep. And then I come back to reality, and I'm going, no, I'm not happy with reality.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Is that making sense?
Yeah. So then it makes sense that if you're feel like you're not happy with the reality, that the mind wants to do this, right? Wants to kind of get into that cozy place and something like this, and we're letting it do this every Monday, coming and getting there again. I certainly have experience with this, and sometimes it can be when somebody is speaking too. Also, I've had that experience, and maybe there's a way in which
Well, I think it's more that I didn't get enough sleep last night for what I need. It was probably about 6 hours, and that's not enough for me.
Oh, yeah, so having a little bit of sleepiness just makes it more and more likely that this will happen. Yeah. But there's a way in which it starts to feel like a dead end or a cul-de-sac also. It starts to feel like, oh, okay, have that experience may be comfortable, but it doesn't lead anywhere. It's just an experience that has a beginning, middle, and end, and there isn't greater wisdom that arises or there greater understanding, so that then we could do something with our life or differently. Instead, it's just an experience we have, which might be pleasant, but it doesn't make a big difference in our life. This is what I discovered for myself. I don't know if that's exactly true
More or
for
less.
you.
More or less, that's okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Anybody else have a comment or a question?
It's sort of a follow-up to that question, actually. But I find that I often go through something very similar. And I'm still trying to work out basically how to navigate it. They say that the sort of awakening factors sort of stack on each other. This like rapture or joy kind of leads into tranquility. But I often find that I'll experience something positive and pleasant, and then kind of the mind just gets lazy, and it's like, we've done it. And it calms down, but it becomes this kind of sinking mind and kind of just drifts off in this dreamlike state where it's not like the mind is absorbed or completely still, but it feels very calm. So I don't know, do you have any general suggestions on how to sort of work with that while you're in that sort of sinking mind, but also before you get into it, kind of how to avoid it skillfully?
Yeah, I would say something that's really helpful. Well, you probably know this. That's right. Mindfulness is in the middle of this. The activating, energizing, and tranquilizing awakening factors, and mindfulness is in the middle. So one is just if you can notice that, and the reason why I'm saying that is because mindfulness helps to keep it balanced. So one is if you notice that you're either going into sinking mind or about to go in there, that's mindfulness. And then here's what can make a big difference. Even if you find yourself in this kind of like this cottony, soft place, investigation. Like, wow. And just like feel like, wow, there's this cottony, fluffy, cozy place. And then just feel like, oh, how does it feel in your shoulders? What's your breath like? What is the mind doing? Is it going slow or fast? Is it having images or is it words? So just bring a little bit of investigation in, will bring the energy up, and then that will bring you out of sinking mind.
Thank you.
I liked what you said near the beginning of your talk, that tranquility is what arises when the heart and mind are no longer looking for happiness. Oh, that's radical.
Yeah.
I mean, it just flips everything on its head.
Very nice. Very nice, Phil. Thank you.
Near the end, you were asking why do we keep distracting ourselves? And I realized I had something that feels like a object relation, like parents, almost like if I'm kind of anxious and agitated, then I'm hearing that I need to settle down, and so it's both like almost feeling like, say, my mom or something, that I need to calm down.
Oh.
And so then it becomes like something more in my head about resisting calming down because I feel like it's not okay to be the way I am, rather than I want to calm. So it's almost like a judgment against myself. And so then also not feeling like I can calm down. And so it's like a double, like rather than trying to face the fact that I'm having trouble settling down, I almost go over into this other thing, like it's not, anyway, I don't want to get too complicated, but it does feel like there's like this resistance to calming down, like there's a judgment against how I am right now.
I see. So it feels like something you're supposed to do or that you should be doing, and
Exactly,
you don't
yeah.
want to do something that you should be doing. Is this?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So.
Like it's not okay for me to be how I am.
Yeah, yeah, I love this. I love this recognition that you're showing. And it's fantastic. Just bring some okayness to the restlessness or the resistance or whatever's happening. And if there's some real authentic okayness with the restlessness, there can be a tranquility as well. A certain, this okayness can grow, that can be the seed from which tranquility can grow from. So I appreciate very much what you're saying. So instead of being agitated about agitation, can you just to bring this, no, I'm going to accept this. And this activity of accepting creates the conditions for tranquility to arise. And then maybe something I'll just add on there also is that I can appreciate, instead of accepting just how things are, or the sense things should be different, you should be different, then it can be helpful, just those moments when tranquility does arise. It arises naturally in our life on certain occasions. There can be a way of just appreciating it, like, oh, actually there's a real sense of calmness right now, there's a sense of serenity or something. And allowing the heart and the mind to recognize, oh, this is actually pleasant and supportive to have some calmness, and just that recognition, then the mind is more likely to incline that way. So it's not because being agitated is bad, it's just because it has this inclination towards quiet, the appreciation of quiet.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Great, great, thank you. Okay, I'm sorry, we are running out of time. You're welcome to come up and talk to me afterwards if you'd like. But I just want to wish everybody a wonderful rest of your evening and safe travels home. Thank you.